Alright everyone, for the most part you get bad news from the UK lately. It's like, well, Labour's going to take control, so they're going to go, headlong into la land here for a while. Then at some point they'll fall out of favor, the Conservatives will come back, and they'll be like Theresa May, as in they won't fulfill any promises. If I was in the UK, I'd be looking at like, why the fuck would I vote for either of the two main parties? It used to be three. They used to have the Liberal Democrats as sort of the junior partner. Now they're nowhere to be seen because they didn't accomplish anything. What was their leader, Clegg or something like that? I can't remember his name. I would be voting for UKIP probably. I'd want Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister because he seems to be the only sane politician on the whole fucking island. But there is one little bright spot right now, and that's that Sadiq Khan has begun to fall out of favor. You mean that what amounts to a political diversity hire with no actual further idea of what to do to solve the problems of Greater London's area? You mean that he's failing? He's beginning to lose, people are losing interest in him because they notice that the only thing he can talk about is, hey, we need to be tolerant and vibrant and stuff, but I don't have any further plans? You mean that far-left politicians typically can't tackle issues because their constituents would get mad if they took any measurable steps to actually solve those problems? Here's the thing. London has now an increasingly slum-like atmosphere in which the problem is self-segregation. But this always happens in big cities. When you inject diversity, so-called, because diversity doesn't actually exist, into a big city, what you get is that groups of people tend to keep to themselves anyway and alienate one another. It's not even a master-servant or an us-them relationship. It's just collective groups of people. They tend to amalgamate along certain lines, especially with regards to language. If you have a group in your country that's come to a city, some hundreds of thousands of people in London, that don't speak English that fluently, because they're first generation, they didn't really speak it in their home nation. They're refugees or migrants for work purposes that are doing brute labor or whatever. They're not, exactly, they didn't go to college or something generally. They will tend to self-segregate out of commercial necessity because are they going to go to an English-owned shop and be able to shop really that well? If they have to ask a question, how the fuck do they ask it? If someone needs to ask them a question, it's going to be kind of an awkward exchange. That's just the way that it ends up occurring. It has nothing to do, by the way, with bigotry. It has to do with the reality of language as it is today and the reality of economics. But you'll get called a racist if you point this out as being potentially a problem, depending on the number of people that have entered that society. He also has no way of dealing with the crime sprees that you're getting right now. London literally has a moped mafia, and I'm sitting thinking about how funny this would be. I'm thinking about how funny it would be for a couple dudes on mopeds that apparently they even attack police officers. So they go up and they zoom past the police officer, clothesline him, grab his wallet, and then speed off. And I'm thinking about some dude in a 90s era tracksuit with one of those little backpacks. And like the weapon he has is a sharpened pencil because it's basically all you can have in the UK. And he's still better armed than the cops with his sharpened pencil. And so he's the terror of these streets of London, the cold, lonely streets. He's the ultimate criminal because he's got this pencil. And it's an assault pencil too, So it's just it's kind of funny to think about. But you've got a situation in which, in order to address the problem of out-of-control spiraling crime within London or within other urban areas, the British government at large would have to address issues, and it would be uncomfortable for them to do so because they have this weird European sensitivity about everything. They would have to call themselves bigots and spank themselves if they were to try to address the problems, because it would mean rearming the citizenry. It would mean rearming your police so that they're actually capable of responding to things. It would mean changing your legal code for the allowance of lethal force in one's own self-defense, which right now it appears, generally speaking, is not actually the case. It's like if you look at duty to retreat states here, if you were to put them on steroids, that would be kind of similar to the way that small town UK deals with its legal system. I can't even imagine how bad it is in an urban area like London. So you've got a segregated city in which groups of people distrust and, in some cases, obviously dislike one another, with religious zealots that tend to be violent, and then a British population that is more and more given over towards at least entertaining the idea of some of the further out there far right and left movements. You've got a mayor of London who doesn't know what he's doing, and apparently, according to people there that are familiar with the structure of London's government, doesn't even have a plan to combat crime, isn't involved with the process, doesn't give a shit. You know, that's because Sadiq Khan can't take the steps necessary to reduce crime, because all of those steps would fly in the face of the convention of far-left UK culture. Every single one of them. It would require addressing the concern of limitless migration. It would require addressing the concern of the fact that the population is totally disarmed, including many of the police in the society. Therefore, they cannot defend themselves. When they try to, and then you have a case where major crimes are committed, and the journalists aren't even allowed to report on it. Hence Tommy Robinson. That's another concern. You know, you've got a situation, you've got a culture there where free press is so little esteemed that if some random government official doesn't like some journalist, I guess they can just get a court to drag him in and give him a kangaroo court summary trial and put him in a cell for a few months. How wonderful is that? Again, just like Tommy Robinson. No, the UK has definitely fallen on some hard times. It's good to see Sadiq Khan falling out of favor. Again, you mean that this individual who has no idea of what to do other than to say, oh yeah, we've got to be tolerant, we've got to be an open, welcoming community, despite all of the problems that our stupidity is causing, if you oppose me. Basically, people like Sadiq Khan are opportunists, though. He doesn't really give a fuck. I think he's a theocrat. I don't think he cares about diversity and tolerance and all that fucking swill. I think that what he wants is theocracy. But he's going to use that as an excuse to browbeat anyone who would otherwise criticize him. Basically, if you oppose me, it's kind of like, for instance, this happens here. You have the concept like racism, like disliking somebody because of the color of their skin or whatever. But then you have politicians who are like, well, you're also racist if you go against what I say because you're of a different skin color than me, or sexism, or homophobia or something. And these excuses are used all the time successfully by the left. It happens we see it all. Maxine Waters. Oh, if you criticize her, you must hate black people. No, I just hate Maxine Waters because she looks hideous and she is a hideous person inside and out. But you can get called a bigot for standing up against her bullying and harassment, which is exactly what she suggested people do to anyone who happens to endorse some vague form of populism or whatever. Sadiq Khan is very much similar. Here we have an example of a dude who thought women should cover up on ads on the side of city buses. No more swimsuits allowed. It's because it'll give females a poor body image. No, I think that there was another reason that he wanted to cover up those scantily clad women. I think you can probably guess what I'm referring to. Sadiq Khan is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. He keeps trying to inject himself into U.S. politics by rambling about Trump or rambling about online bigotry or whatever on a constant basis. The only shit fuck that I see is Sadiq Khan. He's a little twerp. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm not surprised his approval is apparently falling over time as crime soars and poverty expands in London, and as the city is racked by more and more distrust of the local population literally against itself, driven by people like Sadiq Khan, not by the so-called bigotry. There is no far right in the UK for the most part, not by UKIP, not by Nigel Farage, who actually wants more immigration. He just wants it from former Commonwealth states for, I don't know. No, it's driven by people like Khan. Or people like Angela Merkel and all of their ilk all across Europe. None of them know how to govern. None of them are leaders. That's about all. Peace out.